All right, today we're going to take a trip back in time to the very beginnings of English storytelling. We're going to explore how these epic myths about legendary kings eventually gave way to sharp, realistic stories about, well, everyday people. So let's start at the very beginning.
So, where do legends actually come from? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is pretty fascinating. We tend to think of stories as things we read quietly from a book, but that's actually a pretty new idea. The greatest legends, the ones that have stuck around for centuries, they didn't start in a library. Nope, they started in front of a live audience.
And this is what it was all about. Before a single word was written down, stories were performances. They were shared out loud in smoky mead halls, sung to the sound of a harp. And they were literally shaped by the energy of the crowd. It was this shared living, breathing experience. And that right there is what we call the oral tradition. What it means is that there's no single correct version of a story. Every single time a storyteller performed a tale, it could change, just a little bit. Maybe a new joke landed really well, or a character got a bigger part because the audience loved them. The story was a living thing, always evolving.
So, to find the roots of these first great legends, we have to go way back. We're talking about the Anglo-Saxon period, an era in England long before the famous Norman conquest of 1066. So, the Anglo-Saxons brought this incredibly powerful oral tradition with them when they came over from mainland Europe. Their stories were heroic, all about celebrating great warriors and epic battles. You could say the minstrels were the rock stars of their day, performing these massive poems to the music of a harp. And the greatest example we still have is Beowulf, a tale of a hero fighting monsters that was told and retold for generations before anyone ever wrote it down.
Okay, and that brings us to maybe the most famous English legend of all time, King Arthur. Now, the version of Arthur we all know today, with Camelot and the Round Table, that wasn't created overnight. His story is the ultimate product of that oral tradition. It was told and retold and built upon for hundreds of years. You can literally watch Arthur's resume get this massive upgrade over the centuries. The very first time he's mentioned, around 800 AD, he's just called a dux bellorum, a war leader, not even a king. Then a boom, 300 years later, Geoffrey of Monmouth turns him into this world-conquering king. And finally, in the 1200s, French poets add all the stuff we think of as essential. The romance, Lancelot, the quests, the legend just kept getting bigger and better. And with all those new additions, the world of Camelot really started to take shape, filled with these amazing symbols that have become legendary all on their own. You see, each of these symbols isn't just a cool prop. They add a whole new layer of meaning. Excalibur is all about Arthur's right to be king. The Round Table, that represents equality and a new kind of chivalry. The Holy Grail brings in this huge spiritual quest. And Avalon, that gives us the hope that the king might one day return. It's this perfect blend of magic, politics, and religion. But here's where it gets really interesting. At the very heart of Camelot, there's this deep tension, and it's perfectly captured by two knights, Lancelot and his son Galahad. Lancelot is the ideal of earthly chivalry. He's the best fighter, the most passionate lover, the whole package. But his big sin, his affair with Queen Guinevere, means he can't achieve the Holy Grail. But Galahad, his son, is the ideal of spiritual chivalry. His purity allows him to succeed where his amazing father failed. It's a fascinating look at the conflict between worldly desires and spiritual duty. So for centuries, this was literature. It was all about these huge, larger-than-life figures, mythic kings, perfect knights, epic quests. But then, one writer decided to stop looking up at the heavens and instead just looked around at the people he saw every day. And that writer, of course, was Geoffrey Chaucer. He was a real game changer. He basically decided, you know what? I'm not going to write about some imagined heroic past. I'm going to write about the messy, funny, vibrant, and very real world of 14th century England. And wow, was he ambitious. I mean, his plan was just staggering. For his masterpiece, The Canterbury Tales, he planned to write 120 stories. Just think about that. He only ended up finishing 24, but what he left us, it changed English literature forever. The whole setup is so simple, but it's absolutely genius. You have this diverse group of people from all walks of life, traveling together on a pilgrimage. To pass the time, they have a storytelling contest. This framing device is the perfect excuse for Chaucer to bring together all these different characters and types of stories into one single book. And really, it's the characters themselves, the pilgrims, that are Chaucer's masterpiece, his greatest innovation. These weren't mythic heroes. They were real people, with real jobs and real flaws. What's just so incredible is how he captured a snapshot of his entire world. You've got the nobility, the people who fight, like the knight. You've got the clergy, those who pray, everyone from the very prim and proper prioress to the seriously corrupt partner. And then you have the commoners, the people who work, like the rowdy miller and the unforgettable wife Bath. It's the whole of society in one group of travelers. And the magic is all in how he describes them. Take the knight. He's presented as the absolute ideal. Chaucer calls him a true, perfect, noble knight. There's no joke there, no irony. This guy is the real deal, the model of perfect chivalry.
And then you get the miller. I mean, just compare that noble description to this one. It's so physical, so brutish, almost comically gross. Chaucer wants us to see the wart on the guy's nose and the tuft of hair growing out of it. This is his genius. He seems to celebrate his character's flaws, even as he's mocking them. They're not just types, they're unforgettable individuals, warts and all, literally.
So when you step back, you see these two towering traditions right at the dawn of English literature. You have the epic, evolving myth of Arthur, and then you have the sharp, satirical realism of Chaucer. The Arthurian legend. That gave us the blueprint for the hero's journey. It's the story of a larger-than-life hero, a magical world, a huge struggle between good and evil. It's a tradition of aspiration, a story about what we could be. But Chaucer held up a mirror. He gave us flawed, funny, corrupt, and deeply, deeply human characters. His stories are a tradition of recognition. In his pilgrims, we see ourselves and our own society. And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Which kind of story do we need more of today? Do we need the myths that inspire us to be better than we are? Or do we need the mirrors that force us to see ourselves exactly as we are? That tension, born centuries ago, is definitely still alive and kicking.